Hi, thanks for stopping by. This week, I'm going to give you the last in this series of tips that I have used to practice with the majors. Some fun exercises you might want to try. I always found them helpful. I did a lot of studying when I first started reading tarot, and I found it to be so helpful. Of course, two things that are important in terms of studying the major cards. One is to do readings for yourself. I might have said that in the last video, but doing readings for yourself is really good. And it can just be one card, or it can be a 3-card, what we would call a 3-card spread, laying out 3 cards so that you start to build a story between those 3 cards. And you can, I think I did mention this in the last video, you can decide, you can put make the cards specific before you put them out. You can say, past, present, future, or the situation, what I need to know, conclusion. There are different ways to play with those 3 cards, but definitely a card, at least one card, so you start to get familiar with all the cards of the tarot deck, right? And in terms of the majors, one thing that is really fun to do, and this is something I wanted to talk to you about this week, is to go through, place the majors in order, right? Start with the Fool and take it out and look at it all week. Now, what happens when we do this, and keep it close to you, right? When I did this exercise, I had it on my nightstand near my bed. You can have it in your car if you're driving, on your person, at work, you can look at it at lunch. The point is to read up on the card, get familiar with what this card is, and then continue to, I don't know how to say it, but continue to focus on it. Maybe that's the best way to say it during the week. And write down, and eventually what happens when we do this, and this happened to me with every card, starting from the Fool all the way to the World, is that eventually during that week, something happened that reminded me of the Fool. In other words, it's like I manifested whatever the Fool was about, whatever the magician was about, whatever the Empress was about, whatever the High Priestess was about, etc. Now, one thing I noticed when I did this exercise many years ago is that sometimes a card didn't, manifesting that card in my life didn't happen in a week. And there were some cards that I had on my nightstand for a month or more. So a week is a good place to start, but I would suggest you do what I did and don't move on from a card until you get a message from real life about that card. So that is a really fun exercise. Do that one. Another exercise is if you're having an issue or a problem, or you have a question, or you're ruminating about something, not a question, I take that back, but you're ruminating about something specific and you want to connect to that event in your life, go through your deck and choose the card that you think really resembles that, whatever it is you're going through. That's another really great exercise. And again, write all what you're feeling and picking up and discovering in your tarot journal. Another great exercise, if you are in the mood to be creative, I had mentioned in the earlier video to go ahead and like paint, color a deck, right? But if you feel creative in a different way, you can pick a major card at random and then, write a poem, a story, make a prayer, maybe make a, what I want to say, like some kind of motivation for yourself, a saying, whatever, do that. That's another way to get really close to the cards. And I love that one. I love that suggestion. Another suggestion, of course, an obvious thing, is to buy a tarot workbook. There are many out there. When I was studying Uh, it took a while for more books to come into focus, but eventually Mary Greer did a workbook, and I did buy hers, and there were some good suggestions in there. So you might find a tarot workbook helpful. You can do the exercises in those books, or in that kind of book. And another really good thing to do is to, when you're learning tarot in general, and this is about learning the majors, because the majors are going to come up in a spread, right? But don't get too stay focused on using one spread. Sometimes there are many spreads out there now in 2024. So many spreads. Everyone's got an idea about how many cards to lay out and what the card positions mean. Pick one that you like and stick with it for a while. I really think that's another great way to learn tarot in general and learn the cards, because that way, you're really focused on what that spread's about. Eventually, what happens with spreads is that they tell a story. Initially, you might just read verbatim. What does this card mean in this spot? What does this spot is very specific. So what does the card mean in this spot? But eventually it morphs into a more kind of fluid story. And you want to get comfortable with at least one spread. So do that to learn a spread. All right. And then the other thing I want to say, which is how to study, and maybe I should have said this in the beginning, but how to study, when you're learning how to read cards is this. Reading for other people is important. I'm not saying do it right away if you're new at reading tarot cards, but reading for other people becomes your way of getting validated, right? So when we read for other people, and especially when we're new at tarot, it's really important that you remain mindful about the cards that will come up in the spread that you don't understand. Even if it's a 3-card spread, doesn't matter how big the spread is, don't read that card. Even if you're still using the book to understand, or you say to the friend you're reading for, oh, I don't really understand this card, but let me just see what the book says. You could read it verbatim from the book, but I used to err on the side of not reading it at all because I didn't really understand the card yet. It's okay. We have to trust that what we know and what we don't know is then unimportant or important, right? In other words, if we don't understand a card, if we don't know what it means, the person we're reading for doesn't need it. Trust that. It's not important right now. What's more important is that you gain comfort with the card so that every card that comes up, you're comfortable with, and you can read it with a sense of authority, right? So just ignore the cards you don't understand, right? They're just going to be a distraction. And really, I totally believe that we get on the table what we need. And if you don't understand a card, the person you're reading for doesn't need it. Okay. And in general, when you don't understand a card, you notice that card came up in a reading, I don't really understand it. You might even read the definition and go, I don't really understand it. I don't understand how it relates. I don't understand what's going on. Work with that card. That's obvious, isn't it? Just really work with that card and get to the point where you do understand it, and it might take a while. There are cards in tarot that just take longer to understand, and that's the nature of it, and that's okay. It takes longer for us to understand some of the majors. We're not going to get them all in one sitting. Majors are such major issues, topics, revelations, that it is sometimes difficult to truly understand what that card's about. And that's when we take more time with it, so we can focus on what it is the card's trying to tell us, right? That's it. I have run through all the majors. I've run through tips on how to read the majors, how to learn the majors, how to understand the majors. The exercises I offered, I hope you find them fun. I hope you find them interesting. I hope you use them. Please subscribe and please leave your comments. Let me know what you've thought about this series. And of course, I would appreciate it if you let other people know about this series. All right. Thanks for stopping by.